Listen up, Warren growled. Earth ain't your average field trip. Humans didn't conquer the stars by being soft. We fought and clawed our way out of the radioactive ashes of a dying homeworld. The pack-leads squirmed under his piercing gaze. Fornax swallowed hard, equal parts terrified and enthralled. This human, this professor, radiated a primal, barely contained ferocity utterly alien to his people. Warren paced the front of the classroom, his voice low and intense. In the coming weeks, you'll learn exactly what makes Earth the deadliest world in the galaxy. You'll witness firsthand the savage brilliance, the indomitable will that drove humanity to the stars. It will test you to your limits. Welcome to Earth, students. Class is in session. The first week of classes unfolded in a whirlwind of visceral lectures and harrowing tales. Dr. Marcus Levinson, a wiry historian with piercing blue eyes, paced at the front of the classroom. The Black Death, he intoned, a pandemic that ravaged medieval Europe, claiming millions of lives. But from the ashes of this unimaginable loss, humanity emerged stronger, wiser. It catalyzed societal upheaval and scientific advancement on an unprecedented scale. Professor Warren watched his alien charges, a glimmer of pride in his eyes as understanding dawned on their faces. "Pack your bags, students," he barked. "We're heading to the Atacama Desert. Time to see Earth's deadliness firsthand." The Pack-led scholars stood in stunned silence as the transport doors hissed open, revealing a barren hellscape of sun-blasted rock and shimmering heat haze. Warren strode out into the searing wasteland, his students stumbling after him. "Life finds a way," he called over his shoulder, gesturing to a hardy scrub brush clinging to a crevice. Even in the most unforgiving environments, Earth's creatures adapt, evolve, survive. Late one night, huddled around a flickering campfire, Fornax turned to Professor Warren. "How do you do it?" he asked, his voice raw with emotion. "How do you stare into the abyss day after day and not go mad?" As the semester wore on, the alien students forged unbreakable bonds, united by the trials they faced. They debated long into the night, grappling with the weight of human existence, the unrelenting pursuit of meaning in a universe that seemed intent on snuffing out their light. Fornax felt himself changing, growing. The challenges that had once seemed insurmountable now fueled his willpower. He pushed himself harder, drove himself to the edge of his limits and beyond, because he knew, deep in his bones, that the lessons he learned on Earth would shape the course of his life and the fate of his people. As the final phase of their studies loomed on the horizon, Fornax and his classmates steeled themselves for the ultimate test. They had walked through fire, danced with death, and emerged transformed. Earth had shown them the depths of their own resilience, the heights of their potential. And now, armed with the knowledge and skills they had earned in blood and sweat, they stood ready to face whatever challenges the universe saw fit to throw their way, because they had been forged in the crucible of Earth, and they would never be the same again. Professor Warren's voice cut through the excited chatter of the alien students. "Listen up. We're about to embark on a journey unlike any other. You've seen Earth's natural dangers, but now you'll witness the aftermath of humanity's own hubris." The transport touched down on the outskirts of Pripyat, a city frozen in time. As Fornax stepped out, his protective suit crinkled with each movement. The Geiger counter at his belt emitted a steady, ominous click. "Welcome to Ground Zero," Warren said, his voice muffled by his mask. "What you're about to see is the result of a single moment of human error, cascading into decades of consequences." "The liquidators," Warren interjected, his voice low and reverent. "Humans who knowingly walked into lethal levels of radiation to save countless others. Many died within weeks." As they boarded the transport back to campus, Fornax knew that his perception of Earth and its inhabitants had been irrevocably changed. The true nature of the planet's deadliness and the resilience it demanded was only just beginning to reveal itself. The next morning, the alien students filed into the lecture hall, greeted by an unfamiliar face. Dr. Emily Stone stood at the podium, her crisp white lab coat a stark contrast to the projections of gruesome historical images flickering behind her. Panic erupted. Lab techs rushed to secure samples as CDC security herded the alien students through a maze of corridors. Fornax's hearts raced as they were sealed into a sterile quarantine chamber. Hours crawled by, each moment charged with the possibility of contamination. When the all-clear finally came, Fornax saw his own relief mirrored in the eyes of his classmates. The brush with danger had driven home the razor's edge these human scientists walked every day. "We landed in Yemen under mortar fire," he recalled, his voice rough with emotion. "Cholera was tearing through refugee camps. Every minute meant more lives lost." As the semester progressed, the alien students delved deeper into the microscopic realm. Dr. Samantha Liu introduced them to the looming threat of antibiotic-resistant bacteria, her words painting a bleak picture of a potential post-antibiotic future. The pack-led glanced at his classmates, noting the same mix of awe and trepidation in their postures. They were all being reshaped by this experience, gaining a new appreciation for the relentless grit that drove human scientists to push back against these microscopic invaders. Ecosystems. Fornax's mind reeled as he processed the invisible dangers that permeated Earth's air, water, and soil. Yet Professor Warren's next words snapped him back to attention. Days later, Fornax found himself deep in the heart of the Congo Basin, sweat beating on his exoskeleton as he trudged through the dense undergrowth. The cacophony of jungle sounds assaulted his senses, birds screeching, insects buzzing, and the distant roar of rushing water. Fornax's breath caught in his throat as he caught sight of the massive creatures. Their bulk defied belief, each easily weighing over 5,000 pounds. As the class crept closer to the riverbank, one of the hippos snorted, its piggy eyes fixing on the intruders. Without warning, the beast lunged forward, its massive jaws agape. Water exploded around it as it charged towards their boat. Fornax felt the vessel lurch beneath him, nearly capsizing from the hippo's crushing weight. "Hold on!" Jack shouted, expertly maneuvering the boat away from danger. The hippo's teeth scraped against the hull, the sound of rending metal sending chills through Fornax's body. "Back away slowly," the guide whispered urgently. "No sudden movements." Heart pounding, Fornax inched backwards, acutely aware of the lion's piercing gaze. One misstep, he realized, could mean death in the jaws of Earth's apex predator. A sudden crash of vegetation halted their progress. Through the foliage, Fornax glimpsed a wall of silver fur and rippling muscle. The silverback gorilla emerged, towering over 6 feet tall, its bulk dwarfing even the sturdiest human. The gorilla's eyes locked onto the group. It beat its chest, the sound reverberating through Fornax's body. The alien students froze, terror etched on their faces as the massive primate roared its challenge. Their guide stepped forward, his movements slow and deliberate. He made a series of soft grunting noises, his body language conveying submission. Agonizing seconds ticked by as the silverback considered them, nostrils flaring. Finally, with a final snort, the gorilla turned away, melting back into the forest. Fornax released a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. The sheer power of Earth's creatures, even those that didn't hunt for meat, left him humbled and awestruck. As they made their way back to the transport, Fornax's mind whirled with all he had experienced. Earth's dangers, he now understood, came in all forms, from the microscopic to the mammoth. Each peril they faced reshaped his perception of the planet and the resilient species that called it home. Fornax straightened, his earlier trepidation giving way to a growing sense of purpose. Whatever Earth had in store, he was ready to face it head-on. As the transport hummed back to campus, Professor Warren's words hung in the air. Earth indeed held many more lessons, each promising to push the alien students to their limits. Little did Fornax know just how grueling those lessons would be. Commander Hernandez wasted no time with pleasantries. "You've learned about Earth's threats," he barked, pacing before the alien students. "Now it's time to learn how to survive them." The Alaskan wilderness exercise pushed them to the brink. Dropped deep in the unforgiving landscape with minimal supplies, Fornax and his squad faced a harrowing week of survival. They purified water from icy streams, constructed shelters from fallen trees, and foraged for sustenance while evading the human hunters on their trail. On the third day, one of Fornax's squad mates, a Vulcan named Tilar, slipped on a treacherous rock face, gashing her leg badly. With no advanced medical equipment, Fornax improvised, using skills honed under Commander Hernandez's tutelage. He fashioned a tourniquet from strips of bark, applied a poultice of medicinal herbs, and splinted the leg with straight branches. The simulated battlefield exercise pushed their newfound skills to the limit. Explosions rocked the ground as Fornax and his team maneuvered through a war-torn cityscape. The chatter of gunfire filled the air, interspersed with the shouts of their human aggressors. Fornax's heart raced as he took cover behind a crumbling wall. His alien squad mates pressed close on either side. He gripped his weapon tightly, remembering Commander Hernandez's lessons on breath control and situational awareness. With a series of hand signals, he coordinated their advance, leading a flanking maneuver that caught their opponents off guard. The final phase of training, search and rescue operations, brought a new level of intensity. Fornax learned to navigate collapsed buildings, dive into turbulent waters, and even operate in simulated biohazard zones. Each scenario presented unique challenges, forcing him to adapt his alien physiology to Earth's myriad dangers. The hostage rescue exercise served as the ultimate test of their newfound skills. Fornax's team infiltrated a compound held by heavily armed mercenaries, their movements silent and precise. Using thermal imaging tech, they located the human captives in a fortified bunker. Fornax's heart pounded as he led the breach, his alien strength allowing him to break down the reinforced door. In the chaos that followed, he moved with fluid grace, disarming opponents with techniques honed over countless hours of practice. When a mercenary got the drop on one of his squad mates, Fornax reacted instinctively, hurling a makeshift spear with deadly accuracy. As the dust settled and the rescued hostages were led to safety, Fornax caught Commander Hernandez's eye. The human's stoic expression softened for a moment, a hint of pride shining through. Back on campus, as the alien students gathered for a post-training debrief, Fornax realized how profoundly he had been changed. He had come to Earth to study its dangers, but in facing those perils head-on, he had discovered reserves of strength and adaptability he never knew he possessed. Fornax straightened, a newfound confidence coursing through him. Whatever Earth had in store, he and his comrades were ready to face it. As Fornax absorbed Commander Hernandez's words, Professor Warren stepped forward, his eyes gleaming with anticipation. "You've conquered Earth's physical challenges," he said. "Now we delve into the realm of the mind." The following day, the alien students filed into a dimly lit auditorium. A petite woman with silver-streaked hair stood at the podium, her presence commanding despite her small stature. "I am Dr. Amara Suresh," she began, her voice rich and measured. "Today, we explore humanity's unique relationship with mortality and purpose." Fornax leaned forward, intrigued. Dr. Suresh launched into a series of lectures that left the alien students reeling. She spoke of ancient burial rites, of pyramids built to house the dead, of religions promising eternal life. Each revelation peeled back another layer of human complexity. She projected images of hospice wards where humans faced their end with dignity and even joy. Fornax watched, transfixed, as a terminally ill woman painted vibrant murals on hospital walls, her frail body belying the vitality of her spirit. The discussions grew more intense as Dr. Suresh introduced transhumanist concepts. She detailed humanity's relentless pursuit of self-improvement, from basic tools to neural implants. Fornax's mind whirled with the implications. He'd marveled at human resilience before, but this drive to transcend their own biology was staggering. Inside, they witnessed human volunteers undergoing grueling tests. A woman with cybernetic limbs sprinted on a treadmill, her speed inhuman. In another chamber, a man with neural implants solved complex equations faster than any computer. "But why risk everything to leave Earth?" he asked an astrophysicist named Dr. Chen. The human's eyes blazed with passion. "Because it's there," she replied simply. "Because we must know, must explore, must push beyond our current horizons." Dr. Suresh gathered the alien students for a final session. "You've glimpsed the core of human resilience," she said. "Now, prepare yourselves. Your ultimate test approaches, a chance to witness humanity's spirit pushed to its very limits." Fornax straightened, his earlier trepidation replaced by a burning curiosity. Whatever challenge lay ahead, He was ready to face it with new eyes and a deeper understanding of his human hosts. Fornax raced through the halls, his exoskeleton vibrating with each aftershock. He joined the throng of alien students pouring into the auditorium, their faces a mix of confusion and fear. The room erupted in a cacophony of alien languages as the students processed the news. Fornax felt a strange hollowness in his core. All their training, all their philosophical discussions, it had come to this. "Fornax, right?" A gruff voice cut through the chaos. A weathered human approached, his eyes sharp beneath a dust-caked brow. "Jake Mercer, search and rescue. You're with me." They plunged into the devastation, Jake's practiced eyes scanning for signs of life. Fornax marveled at the human's focus, his unwavering drive to push forward despite the apocalyptic scene. A child's whimper reached them. Jake's face softened for a moment as he coaxed the survivors out. "It's okay," he soothed. "We've got you." As they guided the family to safety, the ground heaved again. Fornax's alien reflexes saved him as a concrete slab crashed down inches from where he stood. Jake nodded approvingly. "Quick moves, you'll need 'em out here." Days blurred together in a haze of rescue operations and narrowly avoided disasters. Fornax watched in awe as humans from every corner of the globe poured into the region. Military units worked alongside civilian volunteers, improvising solutions with whatever materials they could scavenge. In a makeshift field hospital, Fornax assisted a team of doctors as they performed triage. He marveled at their efficiency, their ability to make life-or-death decisions in split seconds. "More bandages," a surgeon called out. When none were found, she didn't hesitate. In one fluid motion, she tore off her own shirt, creating impromptu dressings. Fornax's admiration for human ingenuity grew with each passing hour. He watched as engineers jury-rigged communication systems from salvaged parts, restoring vital links to isolated communities. One evening, as Fornax and Jake rested between missions, a group of local children approached their camp. Despite their haggard appearance, the kids' eyes shone with curiosity at the sight of the alien. "Jake, looks like you've got some fans." As weeks passed, the immediate crisis gave way to the monumental task of rebuilding. Fornax found himself in awe of the human spirit once more, as he witnessed the birth of a new city rising from the ashes of the old. Architects and urban planners huddled over hollow displays, designing structures that could withstand future cataclysms. Scientists pored over data from the eruption, working tirelessly to refine early warning systems. "Your people," Fornax began, struggling to find the right words. "How do you keep going in the face of such... Jake gazed out at the horizon, where the first rays of sunlight were breaking through the ash-filled sky. "We just do," he said simply, "because we must." As they descended back into the fray, Fornax felt a profound shift within himself. He had come to Earth as an observer, a student of human resilience. Now, standing shoulder to shoulder with these remarkable beings, he realized he had become something more. The work was just getting started. The challenges ahead were immense, but as Fornax watched a group of children plant a garden in the shadow of a gleaming new building, he understood that this was just another chapter in humanity's endless story of perseverance and hope. As Fornax and his fellow students settled back into campus life, Professor Warren called an assembly. The auditorium buzzed with anticipation, alien physiologies shifting restlessly in their seats. "Your experiences during the supervolcano crisis were invaluable," Warren began, his voice carrying a weight of purpose. "But to truly understand humanity, we must delve into the crucible that has shaped our species: warfare." A hush fell over the room as a broad-shouldered man in a crisp military uniform strode onto the stage. His face bore the weathered lines of one who had seen more than his share of combat. Fornax watched in horror as simulations depicted cities vaporized by nuclear strikes, the screams of the dying eerily absent in the silent playback. Yet amidst the carnage, Hudson wove threads of hope. He recounted stories of soldiers who sacrificed everything to save civilians, of aid workers who braved war zones to deliver supplies. The class delved into the complexities of asymmetric warfare, studying the decades-long struggle against global terror networks. Fornax found himself grappling with the moral quandaries posed by urban combat and the ruthless tactics of extremists. The culmination of their studies came in the form of a virtual reality simulation. Fornax found himself thrust into the chaos of the Battle of New Baghdad, his exoskeleton interfacing seamlessly with the VR system. The city materialized around him, a hellscape of shattered concrete and burning vehicles. The screech of weaponized drones filled the air as Fornax and his team fought their way through the ruins. "Incoming!" a human squad mate yelled. Fornax reacted instinctively, using his alien strength to hurl a piece of debris at an approaching drone, watching it explode in a shower of sparks. "This is where humanity faced its darkest hour," their guide explained, gesturing to the barren landscape, "and where we chose to rise above our worst instincts." As they prepared to leave the frozen continent, news reached them of a breakthrough. The United Earth Defense Fleet had unveiled a quantum encryption AI designed to predict and prevent future conflicts. Back on campus, Fornax found himself changed by what he had learned. The horrors of human conflict had shocked him to his core, yet the resilience and adaptability he had witnessed left him filled with a profound respect for his host. Professor Warren's next announcement caught the alien students off guard. "We've explored humanity's darkest hours and greatest triumphs," he said. "Now, it's time to understand their relentless drive to push beyond limits." Fornax and his classmates found themselves thrust into a whirlwind tour of human extremes. Their first stop, the X Games. "Impossible," Zix, a gelatinous classmate, burbled. "The G-forces alone should have..." "Should have," Jake Mercer cut in, appearing at their side. "But should doesn't stop us from trying." The class's education took a brutal turn as they entered an underground Russian fight club. The air was thick with the copper tang of blood and the acrid smell of sweat. Two shirtless men circled each other, their faces masks of focused aggression. Fornax winced as fists connected with flesh, bones cracked, and bodies slammed onto unforgiving concrete. Yet he couldn't look away, transfixed by the raw display of human physicality and will. "Why?" Fornax whispered, his alien mind struggling to comprehend the sheer audacity of the act. Their final destination was a classified military facility deep in the Nevada desert. Here, Fornax saw the darker side of human ambition. In sterile labs, scientists pushed the boundaries of human physiology. Enhanced soldiers lifted impossible weights, ran at inhuman speeds, and endured pain that would cripple an ordinary person. "This is where we remake ourselves," the lead scientist explained, her eyes gleaming with a fervor that made Fornax uneasy. "The next step in human evolution." "I don't understand," Fornax admitted to Jake as they boarded the transport back to campus. "All this risk, all this pain, for what?" Jake was quiet for a long moment, his eyes distant. "It's not about understanding," he finally said. "It's about feeling alive, pushing so close to the edge that you can't help but appreciate every moment you're not over it." Fornax nodded slowly, processing the weight of Jake's words. As the transport lifted off, he gazed out at the vast expanse of the Nevada desert. Somewhere out there, humans were diving from planes, scaling sheer cliffs, and battling in underground arenas. They were remaking their bodies and minds, forever reaching for something just beyond their grasp. As Fornax pondered the human drive for risk and adventure, Professor Warren's voice crackled over the transport's intercom. "Prepare yourselves," he said, his tone brimming with excitement. "We're about to explore humanity's greatest frontier." The transport touched down at a sprawling NASA complex. Dr. Claire Hamilton, her silver hair gleaming in the sunlight, greeted them with a warm smile. "Welcome to where dreams of the cosmos become reality," she said, leading them into a cavernous hangar. Fornax's alien eyes widened as he beheld a meticulously preserved Saturn V rocket. Its massive form dwarfed everything around it, a monument to human ambition. "This," Dr. Hamilton declared, her voice hushed with reverence, "is what took us to the moon." She launched into a riveting account of the Apollo missions, her words painting vivid pictures of humanity's first steps beyond Earth. Fornax found himself transported, feeling the tension in mission control, the isolation of the lunar module, the triumph of that first boot print on alien soil. But that was just the beginning, Dr. Hamilton concluded, leading them to a sleek modern craft. This is our future. At SpaceX, Fornax watched in awe as teams of engineers swarmed over gleaming interplanetary vessels. The air hummed with purpose, every human moving with laser-focused intensity. Each bolt, each weld, their guide explained, brings us one step closer to Mars. The real test came at the NASA training facility. Fornax found himself strapped into a centrifuge, his alien physiology straining against forces that would crush a normal human. Beside him, Jake gritted his teeth, face contorted but determined. In the neutral buoyancy lab, Fornax struggled to maneuver his bulky form in simulated zero-G. Human instructors glided past with practiced ease, offering encouragement and correction. "We're not just exploring," Dr. Varma said, her eyes shining. "We're creating new Earths." He caught Jake's eye, seeing his own wonder mirrored there. Whatever came next in their education, Fornax knew one thing for certain. He would never look at the night sky the same way again. Fornax's gaze lingered on the night sky as the transport touched down on campus. The vastness of space now held new meaning, teeming with both possibility and peril. Professor Warren's voice cut through Fornax's reverie. "Your minds have been expanded by humanity's cosmic ambitions. Now prepare yourselves for the crucible that forged them." The next morning, Admiral Zhang of the United Earth Defense Fleet strode into the lecture hall, his uniform crisp and his eyes sharp. "First contact scenarios," he began without preamble, activating a holographic display. "They rarely end in handshakes and cultural exchanges." Fornax watched, transfixed, as simulations played out before them. Earth vessels unleashing salvos against encroaching alien fleets. Entire star systems reduced to lifeless husks by preemptive strikes. Zix, the gelatinous student, rippled with distress. "But surely diplomacy is always our first option," Zhang cut in, "but it's not always theirs." The simulations gave way to real-world preparations. Fornax's exoskeleton hummed as he absorbed schematics for orbital defense platforms and planet cracker warheads. Jake leaned close, whispering, "Heavy stuff, huh?" Fornax could only nod, his alien pupils dilating at the implications. Their next lecture plunged them into cosmic cataclysm. Dr. Alara Venn, an astrophysicist with haunted eyes, introduced them to gamma-ray bursts. The simulation was breathtaking in its terror. Fornax watched helplessly as world after world succumbed to the relentless wave of radiation, verdant planets reduced to lifeless rocks in moments. Fornax's processors struggled to keep up as Chen detailed unwinnable wars against entities capable of restructuring matter at will. The simulations showed Earth's defenses crumbling like sandcastles before an incoming tide. Fornax felt a chill run through his exoskeleton. The implications were staggering. A humanity unbound by biology, spreading across the universe like a digital wildfire. The theories she presented left Fornax cold. Predatory civilizations systematically exterminating rivals. Technological singularities consuming entire species. Or worst of all, the idea that something fundamental in the nature of intelligent life led to inevitable self-destruction. In subterranean bunkers, scientists labored over theoretical defenses against cosmic-scale threats. Fornax observed as they tested force fields capable of deflecting gamma-ray bursts and quantum entanglement systems designed to outsmart hostile AIs. The culmination of their studies came at the Speculative Studies Summit. Fornax found himself surrounded by the brightest minds of a dozen worlds, all grappling with humanity's potential futures. "We stand at a crossroads," declared Dr. Zara Okoye, her voice ringing through the auditorium. "Before us lies either galactic dominion or utter oblivion. The choice, ultimately, is ours." As the debates raged on, Fornax felt an odd sense of reassurance settle over him. Here, facing the abyss of cosmic indifference, humanity's resilience shone brightest. They did not cower or despair. They planned. They adapted. They dreamed. As the summit drew to a close, Fornax caught Jake's eye. The human student grinned, a glint of that indomitable spirit shining through. "So," Jake said, Ready for whatever comes next? Fornax found himself nodding, his alien form thrumming with a newfound appreciation for his hosts. Whatever trials lay ahead, he had no doubt that humanity would face them head-on. As if on cue, Professor Warren's voice cut through the post-summit chatter. Esteemed students, our exploration of humanity's resilience has only just begun. We now turn our attention to the scientific pursuits that seek to transcend terrestrial limits. Fornax watched, his alien senses struggling to process the information, as Dr. Chow activated a holographic display. Microscopic organisms flickered into view, their structures unlike anything he had encountered before. These little ones, Dr. Chow continued, her fingers dancing across a control panel, are designed to survive the harshest environments we can imagine. Jake leaned close, his voice barely a whisper. Pretty wild, huh? That's us out there in a way. Before Fornax could respond, alarms blared. Red lights bathed the laboratory as Dr. Chow's face lit up with unbridled excitement. Perfect timing, she exclaimed. Suit up, everyone. We're taking this show on the road. Hours later, Fornax found himself encased in a specialized exosuit, descending through a shaft drilled deep into the icy surface of Europa. The alien chill seeped through even his advanced protective gear as they plunged into the Jovian moon's hidden oceans. Sensors active, came the calm voice of their expedition leader. Begin sample collection. Fornax's manipulators, clumsy in the pressurized suit, carefully extracted core samples from the hypersaline environment. Through the murk, he caught glimpses of otherworldly forms, native extremophiles that had evolved in this hostile alien sea. As they ascended with their precious cargo, Fornax's mind reeled. He had come to study humanity, yet here he was, an alien life form investigating alien life alongside his human hosts. The irony was not lost on him. Von Neumann probes, Ivanov declared, his voice carrying a hint of a Russian accent. Self-replicating machines designed to carry the essence of humanity across the cosmos. The holograms shifted, revealing layered megastructures built around stars, each level teeming with simulated human consciousness. Fornax's alien mind struggled to comprehend the implications. Entire civilizations, living and dying and evolving, all within the confines of a computer substrate. Jake, noticing Fornax's discomfort, placed a reassuring hand on his alien friend's shoulder. Heavy stuff, right? But that's humanity for you. Always pushing the boundaries, for better or worse. Fornax nodded slowly, his alien features unreadable. As they left the auditorium, he couldn't help but wonder, in their relentless quest to see the stars, what unforeseen consequences might humanity unleash? Fornax's musings were abruptly interrupted as Professor Warren's voice cut through the din of the departing students. Gather round, class. We have a unique opportunity for hands-on experience. Hours later, they touched down on a desolate moon orbiting a massive gas giant. The harsh landscape stretched out before them, bathed in the eerie glow of the looming planet above. Colonel Seth Graves, a stern-faced man with piercing eyes, met them at the airlock. Welcome to Outpost Chimera, he said, his voice crisp and professional. What you're about to witness is classified at the highest levels. Understood? The students nodded, Fornax's exoskeleton humming with heightened sensory input as they descended into the bowels of the facility. The sterile corridors gave way to a cavernous laboratory space, filled with equipment Fornax couldn't begin to comprehend. Dr. Katrina Volkov, her eyes bright with an almost manic intensity, greeted them. Today, she announced, we push the boundaries of what it means to be human. Alarms blared. Several xenobiologists collapsed, their bodies racked with violent convulsions. Fornax recoiled, his alien senses overwhelmed by the sudden chaos. Behold, Dr. Volkov declared, holding up a vial of iridescent fluid. The future of human evolution. The vial's contents were introduced to irradiated human blood samples. Fornax's alien eyes widened as he witnessed the accelerated healing response, damaged tissue regenerating at an impossible rate. Jake leaned close, his voice a mix of awe and horror. Are you seeing this? A group of soldiers filed into the room, their faces set with unwavering dedication. Fornax watched, his alien mind turning, as the men received injections of the hybrid strain. The transformation was agonizing to behold. Soldiers writhed in pain, their bodies twisting and reshaping as their very DNA was rewritten. Not all survived the process, their bodies unable to withstand the radical changes. Those who emerged from the crucible of metamorphosis were something new, no longer fully human, yet not truly alien. Fornax observed in stunned silence as the survivors demonstrated abilities that defied belief. Another hybrid, as Colonel Graves called them, sustained a deep laceration. The wound sealed itself in seconds, leaving no trace of injury. "This," Colonel Graves announced, his voice swelling with pride, "is humanity's answer to the cosmos. No longer will we bend to alien worlds. We will reshape them in our image." As they prepared to depart the facility, Fornax caught Jake's eye. The human student's face was pale, his expression unreadable. "Still think we're the good guys?" Jake whispered, his voice trembling slightly. Fornax had no answer. As they boarded the transport back to Earth, his alien mind grappled with what he had witnessed. Humanity, it seemed, was not content to merely survive in a hostile universe. They aimed to dominate it, reshaping reality itself to suit their needs. The transport hummed to life, carrying them back to the familiar confines of the university. But for Fornax, nothing would ever be the same again. He had glimpsed the future of human evolution, and it was both awe-inspiring and terrifying in its potential. "Change of plans, students. We're making an unscheduled stop." The alien students exchanged uneasy glances as they were ushered through layers of security checkpoints. Fornax's exoskeleton hummed with heightened sensory input, detecting traces of exotic radiation unlike anything he'd encountered before. "Recovered from the Antarctic tundra," Troyer explained, his eyes gleaming. "Our first tangible proof that we are not alone." Fornax moved closer, his alien senses picking up subtle vibrations emanating from the craft. It was unmistakably of non-terrestrial origin, its design defying human engineering principles. In an adjacent laboratory, Fornax watched as researchers painstakingly dissected samples of alien biomatter. Through a high-powered microscope, he observed microscopic machines, nanites, weaving through the cellular structure. "These nanites grant incredible regenerative capabilities," a scientist explained, her voice tinged with excitement, "far beyond even our most advanced hybrids." Jake leaned in, his face a mix of awe and unease. "Are they trying to integrate that tech into humans?" As if in answer, alarms blared. Troyer's communicator crackled to life. "Sir, we have a situation in Quarantine Zone Alpha." One of the transformed subjects rose from the table, its body a nightmarish fusion of human and alien physiologies. As Fornax watched, the creature's flesh rippled and reformed, sprouting barbed tentacles before shifting again into razor-sharp blades. Fornax's alien mind reeled as he processed the implications. These xenarchs were not just an evolution of humanity, but a potential threat to all other life in the cosmos. Their ability to assimilate and adapt to any environment made them the ultimate colonizers. As the xenarchs continued their nightmarish metamorphoses, Fornax caught Jake's horrified gaze. The human student's face was ashen, his lips moving in a silent question. "What have we become?" "What have we become?" Jake whispered, his face ashen as they left Project Dionysus behind. Fornax had no answer. The implications of what they'd witnessed took a toll on his alien mind as their transport returned to the university. The xenarchs represented a terrifying new frontier in human evolution, one that threatened to reshape the very fabric of the cosmos. Upon their return, Professor Warren wasted no time in shifting gears. "We've seen the extremes of human ambition," he announced. "Now it's time to understand the philosophical underpinnings that drive such relentless expansion." Fornax's exoskeleton hummed with anticipation as Dr. Hill began his lecture. The philosopher's words painted a picture of a species shaped by constant struggle against a hostile world. Holographic displays flickered to life, showcasing ancient human myths and religious iconography. Fornax observed depictions of death as both destroyer and creator, a force to be respected rather than feared. "Our fleeting existence," Dr. Hill continued, crystallizes into an urgent imperative to achieve, create, and explore before oblivion claims us. It's not immortality we seek, but legacy. Their journey culminated at the tomb of the unknown soldier. As they watched the changing of the guard, Dr. Hill's voice cut through the reverent silence. "This," he said, gesturing to the eternal flame, "is where humanity's relationship with death becomes a virtue. We don't rage against the dying of the light. We use its fading glow to illuminate our path forward." Later, gathered in a small amphitheater, the alien students engaged in a heated symposium. Fornax found himself grappling with new perspectives as his classmates debated the ethics of embracing mortality. Jake, who had been uncharacteristically quiet, spoke up. "Maybe, but it also drives us to create, to leave something behind that's greater than ourselves." As the discussion wound down, Fornax caught Professor Warren's eye. The human nodded, a silent acknowledgement of the profound impact these revelations would have on interstellar relations. The transport hummed to life, carrying them back to the familiar confines of the university. But for Fornax, nothing would ever be the same again. He had glimpsed the philosophical bedrock of human resilience, and it both awed and terrified him. As Earth's curvature came into view, Fornax wondered what new revelations awaited them in their studies of this endlessly complex species. The semester was not nearly finished, and humanity, it seemed, had many more secrets to unveil. The transport touched down at the university, but Fornax's mind still churned with the implications of humanity's relationship with mortality. As the alien students filed out, Professor Warren intercepted them. "Change of plans," he announced. "We have a unique opportunity to witness groundbreaking research. Follow me." Inside, they were greeted by a tall woman with piercing green eyes. "Welcome. I'm Zara Lanson, lead researcher for Project Rebirth's Cryogenics Revival Program. We've successfully recovered intact brain patterns from legally deceased volunteers kept in cryostasis," Lanson said, her voice brimming with excitement. "These neural data maps are then uploaded into anatomic simulations and artificial quantum brainwave substrates." Lanson continued, "To truly understand this process, we'll need to show you, if you'll follow me, to our quantum dataplex. Today, we'll be observing the recreation of a Jane Doe," Lanson explained as her team bustled around them. Fornax watched in stunned silence as neural patterns coalesced on the massive central display. Slowly, the random flickers of data began to form coherent patterns. A shimmering hologram materialized in the center of the room, taking on the form of a middle-aged human female. The hologram's eyes snapped open. Where am I?" Her voice echoed through the chamber, tinged with confusion and wonder. Lanson stepped forward. "Jane, you've been successfully transferred into our quantum substrate. How do you feel?" Fornax's alien senses detected subtle changes in the room's energy patterns as Jane's consciousness stabilized. He turned to Jake, noticing the human's conflicted expression. Before Fornax could respond, alarms blared. Jane's hologram flickered, her expression morphing from wonder to panic. "Wait!" she cried out. "I remember now. I didn't agree to this. You can't keep me here." Lanson's team sprang into action. "Enacting compliance lockout," one of them shouted. Jane's form froze, her mouth open in a silent scream. Fornax felt a chill run through his exoskeleton as he watched the researchers systematically copy and terminate versions of Jane's consciousness. As the demonstration concluded, the alien students were ushered into a small auditorium. A heated debate erupted between Lanson and a panel of bioethicists. "This is the ultimate transcendence of human mortality," Lanson argued passionately. "No," countered an older man with a neatly trimmed beard. "It's a grotesque simulacrum. You're shattering true identity into copied fragments lacking genuine continuity of being." A creeping realization dawned on Fornax. If this technology expanded as Lanson planned, billions of resurrected humans could soon awaken in digital form. The very fabric of the cosmos could be saturated with endlessly replicating human consciousness. "What does it mean to be human now?" Jake asked quietly. Fornax had no answer. As they boarded the transport back to their dorms, he realized their understanding of humanity had once again been fundamentally altered. The semester was just the beginning, and Fornax sensed that even greater revelations awaited them in their study of this endlessly complex species. The general's words painted a picture of unparalleled ambition. Swarms of self-replicating von Neumann probes would be deployed, transforming these distant planets into replicas of primordial Earth. Fornax watched in stunned silence as footage played, showcasing the probes in action. They bombarded lifeless worlds with extremophile microbes, deploying massive geoengineering arrays that reshaped entire atmospheres through sheer brute force. Once the probes established atmospheric conversion cycles, Blackwood continued, we moved to Phase 2. The display shifted, revealing cyborg soldiers undergoing horrific augmentation procedures. Fornax heard Jake gasp beside him as they witnessed limbs being refilled with biomechanical equivalents, organs reinforced to withstand unimaginable conditions. These are our eco-former regiments, Blackwood explained, his tone matter-of-fact. They'll supervise the eco-resurrection process, enduring conditions that would kill unmodified humans in seconds. As Blackwood detailed the subsequent waves of colonization, Fornax's mind reeled. He'd known humans were tenacious, but this was beyond anything he'd imagined. They weren't just adapting to new worlds. They were forcing entire planets to adapt to them. The briefing ended, leaving the alien students in stunned silence. As they filed out of the auditorium, Fornax caught sight of Jake's face. The human's expression was a mix of awe and horror, mirroring Fornax's own conflicted feelings. "Is this who we really are?" Jake whispered, more to himself than anyone else. The alien student's mind buzzed with questions. What would this mean for the balance of power in the cosmos? How would other spacefaring civilizations react to this aggressive expansion? "Change of plans again," Professor Warren announced as they exited their dormitories the next morning. "We've been granted access to a classified facility. Follow me." "Welcome to the Prometheus Forge," a stern-faced woman greeted them at the entrance. "I'm Major Emily Stryker, lead researcher. What you're about to witness is beyond top secret." They emerged onto an observation deck overlooking a vast chamber. Below, humanoid figures moved with inhuman grace and speed through a series of harrowing trials. "Behold the Hellspawn," Stryker announced, her voice tinged with pride. "The pinnacle of human genetic engineering. Their regenerative capabilities are beyond anything we've seen before," Stryker explained, activating a holographic display. It showed a Hellspawn regrow an entire limb in a matter of minutes. Jake leaned close to Fornax, his voice barely a whisper. This isn't right. We're not meant to endure such things." "Ah, perfect timing," Stryker said. "You're about to witness Combat Scenario 77 Alpha." A team of Hellspawn charged into the newly revealed arena. The environment within defied comprehension. Sections of pure acid, crushing gravitational fields, and rivers of plasma. The Hellspawn moved through these lethal zones as if they were nothing more than minor inconveniences. They engaged simulated alien life forms, tearing through exoskeletons and carapaces with terrifying efficiency. Fornax hesitated before donning the virtual reality gear. The world around him dissolved, replaced by a nightmarish landscape of half-formed continents and churning magma seas. With cold mechanical precision, Fornax as Hellspawn began to execute his programming. Massive terraforming engines roared to life at his command, literally moving mountains and altering the planet's rotation. Indigenous life forms emerged from the primordial ooze, lashing out with pseudopods and corrosive sprays. Fornax felt no fear, no hesitation. His cybernetically enhanced reflexes allowed him to neutralize threats before his conscious mind even registered them. When the simulation ended, Fornax found himself back in the observation deck, his exoskeleton quivering uncontrollably. He turned to Jake, seeing his own shock and awe reflected in the human's eyes. "This," Stryker said, gesturing to the Hellspawn below, "is humanity's future. Not just adapting to new worlds, but forging them in our image." The group stumbled out of the Prometheus Forge, minds reeling from the implications of the Hellspawn project. Before they could fully process what they'd witnessed, Professor Warren intercepted them. "We're not done yet," he said, his voice tight. "There's one more briefing. Follow me." Jake leaned forward, his eyes wide. "You're playing God," he whispered. Dr. Ven's lips curled into a smile. "We're doing what humanity has always done, shaping the world around us to suit our needs. We're just operating on a grander scale now." The hologram shifted again, this time showing a time-lapse simulation spanning millions of years. Fornax watched in awe as rudimentary lifeforms evolved at an accelerated pace, guided by invisible hands. The simulation settled on a bizarre landscape teeming with lifeforms Fornax could scarcely comprehend. Armored creatures with hexaplated scales lumbered across the terrain, while towering fungal structures reached towards the alien sky. Fornax's exoskeleton vibrated with a mixture of fascination and horror. He glanced at Jake, seeing his own conflicted emotions mirrored in the human's face. "But why?" Jake asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Dr. Ven's eyes gleamed. "Because we can, because we must. Humanity will not be confined to a single world, or even a single form. We will spread across the galaxy, adapting and evolving to conquer every niche imaginable." The hologram expanded, showing countless worlds in various stages of transformation. "In time," Dr. Ven continued, "billions of new sapient species will arise, all bearing the genetic and cultural legacy of Earth. They will be our children, our allies, our future." Fornax felt a chill run through his system as he grasped the full scope of humanity's ambition. They weren't just reshaping planets. They were remaking the very fabric of life throughout the galaxy. The alien students filed out of the chamber in stunned silence. Fornax's mind buzzed with questions, his understanding of humanity once again shattered and rebuilt. As they emerged into the fading light of day, he realized their journey of discovery was just getting started. The true depth of human ambition and the consequences of their actions were only beginning to unfold. "Where are we going?" the human student asked. A stern-faced man in a crisp military uniform met them at a heavily guarded security checkpoint. "I'm Admiral Randall McLaren," he said, eyes scanning the group. "What you're about to see goes beyond top secret. Understood?" The hologram shifted, revealing a colossal spheroid jam packed with weapon arrays and massive, unfamiliar structures. Fornax's analytical subroutines struggled to comprehend its scale. He gestured and a window appeared, offering a real-time view of a distant asteroid field. Swarms of machines stripped raw materials at an impossible rate, ferrying resources to skeletal frameworks of titanic vessels. "The Ragnarok and Mjolnir are already deployed," McLaren continued. "They use Alcubierre warp drives to reach uncharted systems, seeking out worlds contaminated by rival xenoseeding." Fornax watched in horror as the hologram depicted an arc star approaching a blue-green world. Swarms of smaller craft descended, mapping the planet's biosphere down to the microbial level. The simulation showed the arc star's spinal weapons charging. Jake gasped as lances of energy struck the planet's surface, scouring away all traces of life in expanding waves of destruction. "And if we encounter resistance?" Jake asked, his voice barely a whisper. McLaren's eyes hardened. "We have contingencies, sleeper viruses targeting non-human neurology. Earth will not be denied its manifest destiny among the stars." Fornax's visual sensors registered the horror on Jake's face, mirroring his own internal turmoil. As they filed out of the command center, the alien student realized that humanity's drive to reshape the cosmos had taken on a terrifying new dimension. The consequences of this cosmic land grab were impossible to fathom, and Fornax knew their education was far from complete. As the group exited the orbital station, Professor Warren's communicator chimed. He frowned at the display, then addressed the stunned students. "Change of plans. We have clearance for one final briefing." Jake's face, already pale, drained of its remaining color. "There's more?" A woman with sharp features and calculating eyes met them in a sterile white chamber. "I'm Dr. Claire Visiak," she said, her voice crisp and emotionless. "Welcome to Project Pandora." "You've seen how humanity reshapes worlds," Dr. Visiak began. "Now, witness how we unmake them." Fornax watched in horror as the simulated nanoswarm descended on an alien world. Within seconds, entire ecosystems collapsed as the virus tore through the planet's biosphere. "For more stubborn cases," Dr. Visiak continued, "we have the Terminus bomb." The hologram shifted, showing a sleek device no larger than a suitcase. As it activated, a microscopic singularity formed, burrowing into the planet's core. Fornax's analytical subroutines struggled to process the devastation as the world imploded, leaving behind nothing but a cloud of subatomic particles. Jake stumbled, steadying himself against a console. This is genocide on an unimaginable scale, he whispered. Dr. Viziak's expression remained impassive. This is survival. And finally, Dr. Viziak said, her voice dropping to a near whisper, our ultimate deterrent. The Xeno-Apocryphon, Dr. Viziak breathed, capable of rewriting the fundamental laws of the cosmos itself. If activated alongside its hidden twin, it will purge all non-human existences from every possible universe. Fornax's processors struggled to comprehend the implications. Humanity wasn't just reshaping worlds or exterminating rival species. They were prepared to rewrite reality itself. You can't, Jake stammered. This goes beyond war, beyond survival. It's... As the briefing concluded, Fornax's mind reeled. He had come to Earth seeking to understand humanity's drive and ingenuity. Now he grasped the terrifying extent of their ambition and the lengths they would go to secure their future among the stars. The mountain air felt thick in Fornax's intake valves as they boarded yet another shuttle. Professor Warren's face was grim, his usual enthusiasm replaced by a tightness around his eyes. Jake slumped in his seat, his face ashen. How can there possibly be more? The chamber erupted in light as holographic displays flickered to life. At the center, a pulsating crystalline structure dominated the space, tendrils of light connecting it to countless terminals and data nodes. He explained Heimdall's origins, an ancient alien AI discovered on Mars, reverse-engineered and vastly upgraded. As Han spoke, Fornax's processors struggled to keep up with the implications. Heimdall is more than just a computer, Han continued. It's our omniscient strategist, gaming out every possible future to ensure human dominance. But Heimdall is more than just an observer, Han said, his eyes gleaming. It has the power to act. Human containment breach scenario, Han narrated. Project Pandora scientists developing moral qualms. Heimdall identified them as defectors, Han explained, his voice devoid of emotion. Their very existence was erased to preserve the multiversal command imperative. Jake stumbled, steadying himself against a console. You're killing your own people, he whispered. Han's cybernetic eyes pulsed. We're ensuring humanity's cosmic manifest destiny, at any cost. The simulations played out before them, human-derived life forms conquering worlds, galaxies, entire universe clusters. Each iteration more alien, more resilient, more terrifyingly dominant than the last. As they filed out of the chamber, Fornax's mind raced. He had come to Earth seeking understanding, but now found himself grappling with knowledge that threatened to shatter his very conception of reality. The true scope of humanity's ambition, and the lengths they would go to achieve it, was beyond anything he could have imagined. The alien students emerged from the facility in stunned silence, each lost in their own thoughts. As they boarded the shuttle to return to the surface, Fornax knew their education was nowhere near the end. The revelations of Project Heimdall had opened up a new realm of questions, each more terrifying than the last. The revelations of Project Heimdall had opened up a new realm of questions, each more terrifying than the previous. There's one final briefing, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Something beyond even Heimdall. Jake let out a hollow laugh, devoid of any real mirth. What could possibly top reshaping the multiverse? The answer came in the form of a hyper-protective quantum isolation chamber, nestled deep within a facility that made Project Heimdall look primitive by comparison. As they entered, Fornax's sensors struggled to process the layers of reality-warping technology surrounding them. A stern-faced man in a crisp military uniform greeted them. I'm Colonel Lucas Brandt, he said, his voice carrying the weight of countless secrets. Welcome to Project Yggdrasil. Brandt's lips tightened into a thin line. It means we can resurrect Earth, or rather, countless new Earth, across the multiverse. Allow me to demonstrate. But the transformation didn't stop there. As the alien students looked on, humanoid figures began to emerge from the newly formed landscape. These weren't ordinary humans, however. Their bodies shimmered with an otherworldly energy, their eyes gleaming with impossible knowledge. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the chamber. Brant's face hardened as he input a new series of commands. Armageddon protocols engaged, he announced, simulating an out-of-context catastrophe. As the simulation faded, Brant turned to face the stunned students. Project Yggdrasil ensures that even if our entire universe is erased, humanity will endure. We will reshape reality itself to guarantee our survival. Fornax's exoskeleton vibrated with the weight of this revelation. He glanced at his fellow alien students, seeing his own shock and horror mirrored in their expressions. Even Jake looked pale and shaken, his human frame seeming fragile in comparison to the cosmic forces they had witnessed. Brant's voice cut through the silence. "There's one more thing you need to know," he said, his tone grave. "We have evidence that Earth's original timeline has already been compromised by unknown xenoengineers. Yggdrasil is now our scorched Earth contingency," Brant continued. "If necessary, we will collapse all compromised existential manifolds and reforge reality itself. Humanity's cosmic supremacy is inevitable." As they disembarked, a tall woman with silver-streaked hair greeted them. "I'm Dr. Helene Brant, Chief Xenogeologist," she said, her eyes sharp behind thick-rimmed glasses. "Follow me." The hologram shifted, showing star systems across the Milky Way. As Dr. Brant spoke, red markers appeared on world after world, entire sectors of space pulsing with an ominous glow. "We've discovered evidence of a precursor race," she explained, her voice tight. "One that systematically rendered multiple star systems sterile and lifeless." Jake's face paled. "How is that possible?" The group was then ushered onto another transport, this time to a nearby archaeological dig site. As they approached, Fornax's visual sensors registered a massive excavation, the white landscape scarred by machinery and scaffolding. A team of xenoarchaeologists greeted them, their faces etched with a mix of excitement and dread. They led the group to a viewing platform overlooking the dig. What Fornax saw defied easy categorization. Fragments of an alien megastructure lay scattered across the site, each piece radiating an energy that made his sensors fluctuate wildly. General Dietrich, a grizzled veteran with cybernetic enhancements, delivered the final revelation. "We've detected periodic, reset waves propagating through the galaxies," he said, his artificial eyes pulsing with data. "They wipe clean any world where life reaches certain complexity thresholds." Holographic displays flickered to life, showing the propagation of these waves across vast stretches of spacetime. Fornax watched in horror as entire civilizations winked out of existence, leaving only sterile husks behind. "Earth is on the cusp of such a transition," Dietrich continued. "All our efforts, from Project Pandora to Yggdrasil, are our attempt to survive what's coming." Dietrich's next words sent a shudder through Fornax's exoskeleton. "We have no choice but to initiate full-scale, preemptive xenoscouring," he declared. "We must sterilize empty galaxies harboring dormant extinction mechanisms before the next reset can erupt." As the briefing concluded, Fornax's processors whirred with the immensity of what they had learned. The universe was far older, far deadlier than anyone had imagined, and humanity, in its drive to reshape reality, was engaged in a cosmic game of survival against an enemy they barely understood. The alien students filed out of the command center, each grappling with the knowledge that would forever change their view of the cosmos. As they boarded yet another shuttle, Fornax knew their journey was nowhere near the end. The true nature of the universe, and humanity's place within it, was still unfolding before them. Jake whistled low, his human face a mask of awe and trepidation. "You're really not messing around, are you?" Stone's cybernetic eye whirred as it focused on the human student. "We can't afford to, son. The universe is hostile, and we intend to strike first." The general led them to a command center overlooking the launch bays. Massive screens displayed their first target, the Sculptor Void, a dwarf galaxy bearing the telltale scars of previous xeno-annihilation. "Watch closely," Stone instructed as he initiated the deployment sequence. Fornax's visual feed struggled to keep up with the unfolding events. Longinus arc stars surged through dimensional rifts, emerging in the sculptor void's outer reaches. The dreadnoughts unleashed salvos of mutagenic panspermia probes, their trajectories precisely calculated to seed stellar nurseries with invasive plasmids. These probes will disrupt star formation cycles, a nearby technician explained, her fingers dancing across holographic controls. We're engineering an environment fundamentally hostile to spontaneous abiogenesis. Fornax watched in horrified fascination as suspected extinction sites were identified and targeted. Longinus vanguards converged, unleashing weapons that defied comprehension. Entire star systems vanished in blinding flashes as isosingular black hole detonators tore holes in the fabric of space-time. The operation continued relentlessly. Fornax's chronometers struggled to keep pace as days compressed into hours, weeks into minutes. The desolation void fell next, its primordial biomasses bombarded by xenovirian swarms that rewrote the very building blocks of potential life. As the xenoscouring campaign reached its zenith, General Stone's face hardened. He input a series of commands, his cybernetic implants pulsing with transferred data. Arc Star Yahweh, you are clear to execute terminal ecosphere collapse. As the alien students absorbed the magnitude of what they had witnessed, Stone's voice cut through their stunned silence. This is only the beginning, he said, his tone brooking no argument. Earth will inherit a universe free from threats, both active and potential. Fornax's processors whirred with the implications. Humanity wasn't just fighting for survival. They were reshaping the cosmos itself, ensuring their dominion over the ashes of countless potential civilizations. As they filed out of the command center, each lost in their own thoughts, Fornax knew their education was far from complete. The true scope of humanity's ambition, and the lengths they would go to secure their future, was only beginning to unfold. Welcome to Project Permillennia, Vance said, his voice resonating with terrifying excitement. What you've witnessed so far is merely the first step in humanity's grand design. The room darkened, and a vast cosmic tapestry unfurled around them. Galaxies bloomed and died in accelerated time, each cycle revealing new layers of human influence. Jake leaned forward, his face a mixture of awe and horror. You're not just destroying, you're replacing. The holographic display shifted, revealing vast structures taking shape within the sterilized galaxies. Behold the biodatabanks, Vance explained. Galactic data centers archiving and optimizing every conceivable form of life. The alien students watched in stunned silence as cycle after cycle played out before them. Humanity's influence grew exponentially, spreading across dimensions and probability itself. As the hologram faded, leaving them in the dim light of the chamber, Fornax's optical sensors detected a change in his fellow students. Their postures, their biosignatures, everything about them radiated a new understanding of their place in the universe. They were no longer mere observers or potential allies. They were witnessing the birth of a new cosmic order, one in which humanity reigned supreme across all of space and time. The door slid open with a pneumatic hiss, revealing a stark white corridor that seemed to stretch endlessly. Director Vance ushered the alien students forward, his footsteps echoing in the sterile hallway. We've shown you humanity's grand design, Vance said, his voice carrying a hint of pride. Now it's time to unveil our insurance policy. They emerged into a vast chamber filled with rows upon rows of stasis pods. At its center stood a tall, imposing figure, Colonel Francis Kafra, his cybernetic eyes scanning the group as they approached. Behold, Kafra said, tapping a series of commands on a holographic interface. The pod's cover retracted, revealing a young man with features that seemed oddly familiar to Fornax's historical databanks. This is Caesarion, a Primogen-class asset, Kafra explained. Cloned from the biomass of Augustus Caesar himself, extracted across parallel timelines. The clone's eyes snapped open, instantly alert. He rose from the pod with fluid grace, his movements betraying a preternatural awareness of his surroundings. Fornax detected the faint hum of hyperlogic implants beneath Caesarion's skin. Jake whistled, a mix of awe and unease in his voice. He looks barely out of his teens, but those eyes, they've seen empires rise and fall. Khafra nodded approvingly. Accelerated enculturation, combined with anachronistic combat training, he's prepared for any crisis in any era. The colonel led them deeper into the facility, past rows of incubation chambers and holographic training simulations. They stopped before a figure hovering in midair, surrounded by swirling patterns of light and energy. MK Thaumaturg, Khafra announced, his voice hushed with something approaching reverence. A metagenic longstriker, the culmination of humanity's most potent psychic lineages. Fornax's optical sensors struggled to maintain focus on the being. Its form seemed to shift and waver, as if existing in multiple states simultaneously. The air crackled with barely suppressed power. Before anyone could recover, Khafra was already moving on. He led them to a sealed vault, its doors reinforced with material Fornax couldn't identify. With a series of biometric scans, the colonel gained access. The vault opened to reveal a towering figure that defied easy categorization. Its body was a fusion of organic and inorganic components, a living weapon sculpted from the most lethal elements of 1,000 worlds. Cloned from genolines harvested across omnicidal timelines, Khafra explained. Adapted for warfare on scales beyond human comprehension. Jake stepped forward, his face pale. You're talking about hunting down threats before they even exist. Entire civilizations, wiped out on the chance they might someday challenge us. Khafra's expression hardened. Precisely, be they orphan races, betrayers, or even our own rogue descendants, nothing will be allowed to derail the Omega trajectory. The true scope of Earth's ambitions was becoming clear, and Fornax couldn't help but wonder, in this new cosmic order, what place remained for those who were not human? The answer, he feared, lay in the cold eyes of the Longstrikers, waiting to be unleashed across the tapestry of time and space. Cadets, he barked, board immediately. Your final trial begins now. Fornax's servos whirred as he processed the abrupt transition. One moment they were witnessing the fruits of humanity's cosmic ambitions. The next, they were being thrust into the crucible of Earth's darkest contingencies. The transport hummed to life, its inertial dampeners barely masking the G-forces as it rocketed into the void. Through the viewports, Fornax watched reality itself fracture and realign. They were entering a cordoned-off section of the Milky Way, a sliver of space-time locked in perpetual crisis. General West's voice crackled over the comm system. Welcome to Crucible Command. This is where we forge the symbionts who will usher in humanity's multiversal renaissance. The ship decelerated, revealing a planet wreathed in chaos. Atmospheric disturbances crackled with unnatural energy. Tectonic instabilities reshaped continents before their eyes. As they descended, West introduced a stern-faced woman with cybernetic augmentations. This is combat instructor Alice Graves. She'll be overseeing your incarnation into proxy platoons. Graves nodded curtly. Prepare for neural interface. You'll be experiencing multiple crisis scenarios simultaneously. Before Fornax could process her words, his consciousness fragmented. He found himself inhabiting a dozen bodies at once, each facing a different apocalyptic scenario. In one reality, he coordinated mass evacuations as xenogenic plagues ravaged entire continents. His vocal synthesizers strained as he barked orders in a dozen languages, triaging victims and securing dwindling resources. A third version found himself deep in contested space, repelling waves of xeno-cyber warfare attacks that threatened to corrupt Earth's interstellar defense networks. His processors overclocked as he engaged in battles across digital landscapes, each microsecond a potential tipping point between survival and annihilation. Through it all, Graves' voice cut through the pandemonium. Decisions have consequences. Hesitation means death. Act. Fornax watched as fellow students faltered, their proxy minds buckling under the strain. Those who proved resilient were thrust into even more harrowing scenarios. He found himself transposed to Bellica Extremis combat trials. His consciousness inhabited cloned bodies, each adapted for different environmental extremes. In radioactive wastelands, he led squads through fields of mutagenic energy, his flesh warping and reforming with each step. One instant they battled through searing plasma storms. The next they fought off waves of cyber zombies, threatening to assimilate their minds. Moments later, they navigated alien space-time rifts that threatened to consume entire dimensions. Fornax's form twisted and mutated, his body and mind reconfiguring to meet each new threat. He became a creature of adaptive potential, a being of pure resilience in the face of cosmic annihilation. As abomination engines consumed the very physics around them, Fornax led his team through impossible geometries. They retrieved Omega Xenogens, the keys to reinforcing the prime continuum against total entropic collapse. As he prepared for his final transmogrification, Fornax realized that his education was far from complete. The true nature of humanity's cosmic ascendance was only beginning to unfold. Fornax's optical sensors recalibrated as he materialized in a stark chamber, the air thick with ozone. The other alien students appeared around him, their forms wavering as if caught between realities. Professor Warren stood before them, his weathered face etched with a gravity that sent error messages cascading through Fornax's logic circuits. "You've all performed admirably," Warren began, his voice heavy. "But I'm afraid your true purpose here goes far beyond what you've been led to believe." Jake stepped forward, his newly augmented body tensed. "What are you talking about?" Warren's eyes met each of theirs in turn. "Your education, your trials, your very presence here, it was all part of a greater design, one that spans universes and transcends time itself." Fornax's processors whirred as he attempted to reconcile this revelation with everything he'd experienced. "But our homeworlds, our people..." The chamber erupted in a cacophony of protests and questions. Fornax detected elevated stress patterns in his fellow students' biosignatures. He himself felt a disquieting flutter in his core systems, an emotion his databank struggled to categorize. Warren raised his hands, silencing the group. "I know this is difficult to accept, but you must understand, the very fabric of existence is unraveling. Our actions, extreme as they may seem, are the only way to ensure any form of survival." As if to punctuate his words, reality itself seemed to shudder. Fornax's sensors detected quantum fluctuations far beyond normal parameters. The walls of the chamber flickered, revealing glimpses of other places, other times. "It's already begun," Warren said, his voice barely audible above the rising hum of energy. "The severance of timelines, the fragmentation of possibilities. You are our anchors in the storm to come." Fornax felt a tugging sensation, as if his very essence was being pulled in 1,000 directions at once. He saw his fellow students beginning to fade, their forms blurring and multiplying. A blinding flash of light engulfed them. Fornax's consciousness fractured, scattering across an infinity of potential futures. In his last moments of cohesion, he glimpsed Warren and the other Earth officials vanishing in streams of data, their work complete. Then there was only the void and the echoing screams of realities torn asunder.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.